Hello and welcome to the Golden Playbook. Today we are going over the 5 wide receivers that I am most nervous, most terrified to draft in 2025 fantasy drafts. If you haven't seen the last video, we did this with the running backs. Today we're doing it with the receivers. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July weekend. I hope everyone stayed safe out there. But like I said in the running back version of this is not deep sleeper guys. These are wide receivers being drafted in the top 6 rounds. So guys who are going to be starters on your fantasy team that I'm most terrified to draft this year. Without further ado, our first guy is Garrett Wilson. He's being drafted at the wide receiver 16, ADP of 27, and all of these ADPs are from Underdog, which is a wide receiver heavy site because they start 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs. But nonetheless, Garrett Wilson is a round 2, round 3 wide receiver in fantasy drafts, and I am a little bit skeptical of him. I do want to preface that just because a guy is on this list does not mean I'm not drafting them entirely. And honestly, it doesn't mean that I'm that much lower than ADP on them. It's just when I take an objective look at them, if they were on my team heading into the season, I would definitely be a little bit nervous about them. Back to Garrett Wilson. You are likely drafting Garrett as your wide receiver 2. For some teams that go RB heavy, he would be your wide receiver 1. In which case, I would be even more terrified if he was my wide receiver 1. Due to a couple of things, I'm expecting a much lower passing volume in New York this season with Justin Fields at quarterback. Not to mention the quarterback accuracy in itself is going to go down. And last season, it wasn't great for him anyways. But with Justin Fields, the accuracy, the volume is not going to be there. We know Justin Fields loves to give the ball to his first read, which I imagine will be Garrett Wilson quite a bit in this offense. But I would not be surprised if the New York Jets are a 24-25 pass attempt per game team. And that is hard to produce big fantasy numbers at the wide receiver position. Unfortunately, I think we're drafting him at his, top upside right now. I think things could be really poor for him. He could be, a wide receiver 30, and I wouldn't be too shocked about it. And it's nothing against Garrett Wilson, the player. I think he's an outstanding athlete and talent. I really want him to get a competent quarterback that can get him the ball. I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be that guy. It didn't turn out to be that way. Perhaps Justin Fields and this offense can shock us a little and provide for Garrett Wilson. I'm just not willing to bet my chips on that happening. Subscribe! Next up on this list is Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He is the wide receiver 19, ADP of about 31. Again, another guy, middle of the 3rd round, who's got a lot of different factors at play for him. One, I'm projecting Seattle to be a bad offense, mostly due to quarterback play. I'm not too high on Sam Darnold, as many of you know. I think he's fine from a throwing the ball standpoint, but a decision-making and a timely decision-making is not his strong suit, which is obviously very necessary behind the Seattle offensive line that has been poor for many, many years. Another thing I am worried about is where they're going to have him play this year. Obviously, he did a lot of his damage from the slot last season with DK on the outside, but now that they bring Cooper Kupp in, who is obviously a great slot wide receiver, or has been, are they going to slide Cooper Kupp into the slot, make Jaxon Smith-Njigba play outside, which I don't think is necessarily his strength? I'm a little bit worried about that for sure. I think the volume will be there, which could get him home to value at the end of the day. I think especially in PPR, he gains a lot more value than a half PPR or standard league, which is why I'm shocked he is this high on Underdog, which is a half PPR site. Although I am expecting the targets to be pretty concentrated to Jason, Cooper Kupp, those type of guys, I'm just not sure it's going to be enough quality targets headed his way. Again, another guy who is not him, it's not his talent that I'm worried about. It is the surrounding environment, the quarterback, the offense as a whole. Jason is number 2 on this list. Next up, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 23, ADP of 44. Listen, this is a guy I am much, much lower on than pretty much everyone. Experts, consensus, everyone. I'm way low on Xavier Worthy this year. To be honest, he was not too convincing last season when Rashee Rice was hurt. Travis Kelce was, pretty much non-existent for much of the season. Worthy was the number 1 option, and I was very, very underwhelmed. Honestly, I think he's more of a gadget guy. End arounds, deep shots. I'm just not convinced he is a great NFL wide receiver. And with Rashee Rice coming back, who I'm very, very high on, and Travis Kelce with perhaps his last season wants to go out on a high note, I think Worthy could easily drop down to the 3rd option on this team, let alone a team that already wants to be a little run-heavy defensive type of team. We could see them shift back to a more pass-heavy offense. I'm not willing to bet on that, let alone the potential third option in the middle of the 4th round. Listen, to be drafting Xavier Worthy as your wide receiver 2, now I understand it in a best ball format like Underdog, where you're hoping to get those boom weeks, multiple touchdown weeks, but on a regular fantasy basis, week to week, I think he's going to be super, super inconsistent. I'm pretty much out on Xavier Worthy this year. He's one guy I'm just too low on to really get any shares of. I'm just much higher on the other options in that Kansas City offense. Next up, we have Jameson Williams, wide receiver 25, ADP of 44 as well. And listen, I know this one is more of a hot take. People are expecting him to take that next leap. But with Ben Johnson leaving and with how crowded that offense is, I'm very worried he is going to kind of regress back down. And listen, this is more of a gut play. I don't have a bunch of numbers or reasoning behind it. Last year, we saw Sam Laporta be that odd man out, a player that regressed just because there's so many mouths to feed with Montgomery, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Jameson, Laporta. 5 solid stud players who are not all going to return value on their ADPs for fantasy reasons because there's only one ball to go around. This year, I'm worried Jameson Williams is the odd man out. It's more of a gut play, like I said. I think Laporta kind of comes back to his rookie season form. Maybe not quite so dominant, but I think he gets more involved. Amon-Ra's a mainstay. Jahmyr Gibbs a mainstay. But Jameson Williams, I fear, might be the odd man out. Losing their center, Frank Ragnow. Perhaps the offensive line is unable to protect for quite as long, and they aren't able to get the deep shots down the field to Jameson Williams because we know that's where he thrives. Amon-Ra is around the line of scrimmage, over the middle kind of guy, and Jameson Williams takes the top off of defense. But what if they don't have time to do that this season with Ragnow being out, Ben Johnson leaving, like I mentioned? Definitely worried about Jameson Williams, especially here. You're drafting him as your back-end wide receiver 2, potentially your wide receiver 3. I think it's just too crowded in Detroit. I'm very terrified to draft Jameson Williams this year. Our 5th and final guy on this list is Chris Olave, and this is a real easy one. Wide receiver 36, ADP of 65. Obvious health concerns with the multiple concussions last season. Is he going to play a full season? Are you going to even get 12, 14 games out of him? And even if you do, the QB concerns are obviously evident. Will it be Spencer Rattler? Will it be Tyler Shuck? We don't know. The one thing Olave does have going for him is it's a very condensed offense. Kamara's the only guy on the ground. Olave, maybe Rashid Shaheed through the air. So it's very condensed. There's a potential he gets a 30% target share. I would not be surprised. And we know he's a very, very talented guy. I've noticed I got a lot of Ohio State receivers on this list who I like them all from a talent standpoint, but their situations are just really, really tough to overcome. Chris Olave being the poster boy for that. New Orleans could be one of the bottom 2-3 offenses in the league this year. Pretty easily projected out to be. And with that being said, I don't know how much upside is there, even if he has that target share. Because if this offense puts up 14 to 17 points per game, it's just not likely Chris Olave will be a huge fantasy asset for us this season, unfortunately. I do have one honorable mention who was going to make this list until recent trades happened, and that is Jaylen Waddle. He's currently the wide receiver 31, ADP of 54, which is in the 5th round. And he was going to make this list for obvious reasons. But now that Jonnu got traded, he moves from the 4th option to the 3rd option, which is still not great for where he's being drafted. But it's pretty condensed now. Tyreek, A-Chain, and him. Of course, they traded for Darren Waller, but I'm not expecting much at this point. We could hear good reports that he starts ramping up. But I think the Jonnu trade is great for Jaylen Waddle. He's the biggest benefactor. Obviously, Tyreek gets a little bump for me, but I think Waddle becomes relevant again. Of course, they don't really dial up plays for Jaylen Waddle like they do Achane and Tyreek. So that's what's most concerning, where he's being drafted at. And he was going to make this list because I think Jaylen Waddle was getting drafted on talent alone, and I don't think he could have paid up that value. But now that Jonnu is gone, I think there's a little role for him. So I am less worried to draft Jaylen Waddle. Although, to be honest, I like a lot of the running backs in the range where he's going. So I still will not find myself grabbing a lot of Jaylen Waddle this season. There you have it. There are my 5 wide receivers I am most nervous and worried to draft this season. Like I said, last week we did the running backs of that version. If you haven't checked it out already, make sure you do so. Drop down in the comments if you agree on these guys with me. If you disagree, who are you most terrified to draft from the wide receiver position? Drop it all down in the comments below. Would love to hear what you guys are thinking. While you're down there, you might as well hit the like button and smash the subscribe button for me. If you're wanting to know when I'm dropping videos, hit the little bell and you will get notified from YouTube. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate the support. Peace.